Okay. Good evening, folks. I think I'm audible. And today I will be presenting the fundamentals of design principles. Thank you, Ornima, for the opportunity. And before I start, I need to know some things about this audience. And one of them is, what are your expectations from this bootcamp? In case you already haven't answered the question. And how well do you know about graphic designing in an overall?
Folks in the audience, you can drop your answers in the chat, or you can raise your hand and uh, we can allow you to use the mic. And yeah,
All right. So before we start the session, we would like to keep it highly interactive so that it benefits both you and me. You can ask questions at the end because I will be able to answer them right in the end only. And in case you think that this is boring, it's completely all right because not everything is very interesting to everyone. And forgive my very average slides. Let's start. Okay. So we are here with the announcement of the fundamentals of design session. And about me, I'm the founding lead of GDSC BBIT, and I think I'm a dramatic designer because whatever I make for people or for communities doesn't necessarily conform with their standards. I make some pretty rad designs at times. And you can see me making some of the posters for community events. And yeah, that's me. And I'm an introvert. This is my headshot, and I don't like talking to people. But today here I am conquering my fears and giving a session.
Tithi, I believe your slide is not changing.
I think that's an issue. Now
Mm.
can you see?
Yeah. Now it's doing it. Now it's
Okay.
transitioning. Yeah,
You didn't see this yet, right?
yeah.
It's okay.
Please continue. Please continue. Yeah.
So the agenda for today is just to get to know what graphic design really is, the tools used in graphic design, the principle of graphic design, and something which you would know at the end. You have to keep in tune with the presentation for that. So the next part, what is graphic design? Do you have any idea of what graphic design is? Type it in the chat or just use the slide, or you can use ChatGPT or Google as well. We just need to keep this session interactive to make sure that no one's sleeping.
I believe folks are replying in the chat.
Yeah. So according to the Oxford Dictionary, graphic designing is the art or skill of combining text and pictures in advertisements, magazines, or books. But graphic design can also be described as a craft where people create visual content to communicate messages. Well, in advertisements, you do communicate some kind of message to the masses for some sort. Magazines also have the same purpose, and books, you know already. Now, graphic designers actually work to communicate ideas in a visual format, guiding perception and informing their audience. Most of the pictures or the posters that you see, which is referred to as graphic designing, but is not limited to it, actually conveys some kind of message, be it from a cultural club promoting their event to something which is promoting their own necessary stuff, all falls into this criteria, but is not limited to it. Most graphic designers work on behalf of a client or company or for organizations as they are non-profit, but they don't get any staffing for it, creating designs to satisfy specific objectives. One of them might be for earning money. That's one of the purpose for which you actually get a graphic designing job, or to create something for your own satisfaction as a piece of art, Or you can create something as a part of a campaign for the specific company you're working for. Graphic designers are also considered artists. It's up to you for your creation. Whatever you can create with your imagination is valid, even though sometimes it can be really shitty. Companies use the visual concepts of graphic design to promote and sell products through advertising to convey complicated information in an easy to understand format. Think of infographics to develop a brand identity and so much more. Certain companies do have some kind of brand guidelines for the designing of their graphics so that there is an uniformity in the products they develop and want to advertise on. While most of the companies hire graphic designers for commercial purposes, many designers do also use work for artistic impression. Well, there are a lot of tools that graphic designers use. One of the tools that you will be using in this bootcamp is Figma, but there are other tools like Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, and Adobe XD. Adobe family tools are generally paid and they offer a limited time free usage, but they are more versatile compared to free products and are generally used for higher purposes like creating something in Figma isn't easy. People generally use Illustrator or Photoshop for that, or you can just download vector graphics from the internet and create your posters. The other tools for desktop include Canva, and Canva has a huge library of designs which can be used in any format and in any way possible to create a completely new design. And Canva is also one of the most preferred tools for absolute beginners to start graphic designing. You don't need to know actual graphic designing to start building with Canva, but in Figma, you need to know how it works, and then only you will be able to create some of the most basic designs. Figma has a learning curve, which is not necessarily tough, but once you understand the basics, it will be easy for you to create anything. Apple products have Procreate, and unless you are rich, you won't have any access to Apple products like iPads or MacBooks. But Procreate has a very rich experience and it's very useful for people who do work on contractual and regular purposes. They also have the machinery for doing so. And the other tools that graphic designers use are graphic tablets as well, besides software, because there you can use your own pen, like specialized pens, like the Samsung pen or Apple pen or whatsoever, to create something which is not exactly computerized but is made using your own hand. So that comes in a plus, but they can be madly expensive. So let's skip to the part. For the elements of graphic design, a graphic designer creates work utilizing certain visual elements. Well, they can use it in any way they like, provided that the outcome actually makes sense, work in conjunction or opposition with each other to create striking and impactful visuals. Graphic designers have to adhere to some principles of design, which are essential a set of guidelines that help a designer achieve the appealing composition, which we will be discussing today. For the first part, it's nothing but contrast. It refers to how different elements are in a design, particularly adjacent elements. These differences makes various elements stand out. It is also a very important aspect of creating accessible designs, like insufficient contrast can make text content in particular very difficult to read, especially for people with visual impairments. You can see in this example beside, there is the use of contrast. There is a very light background with a dark text. What this does is that it makes the text pop up. You can read it very easily. You can figure out what the actual main points are because they are underlined, which also provides a contrast to the normal text. It's underlined. Your eyes are supposed to go into it. And this part is the main part of the text that the creator wants the people to focus on. That's why the size of the text is larger compared to the other details, which are necessarily not the ones the creator wants people to focus on. Generally, color contrast is determined using simple techniques like the color wheels that you might have studied in school, and there are also different type of color wheels available. So there's a lot to play around with to explore the possibilities of getting a good contrast. For the next part, we have talents. All design elements and principles like typography, colors, images, shapes, patterns, etc. carry a visual weight. Some elements are heavy and draw the eye, but some elements are lighter. The way these elements are laid out on a page should create a feeling of balance. There are two basic types of balance, that is the symmetrical balance and asymmetrical balance. Symmetrical designs lay out elements of equal weight on either side of an imaginary center line. Asymmetrical balance uses elements of differing weights often laid out in a relation to the line that is not centered within the overall design. As you can see on this image on the right, the hands holding the pots are an example of symmetrical design. There is a imaginary line which you can imagine running between the two pots and the hands, which creates a symmetry on either part of it, while the lower design, like the one with the back cap, it creates an asymmetrical component with only one half of the white space being very large and the other half being very small. It's just asymmetrical at this point, but both of them do look very appealing in this poster. It's up to you how you decide things to be symmetrical or asymmetrical, and generally, symmetrical elements are the ones which are used the most in a simple poster. Asymmetrical designs are tougher comparatively to use, and you need to know a very high degree of knowledge to even apply it because one wrong position and the poster might seem off or the graphics, whatever. Coming to the next part, we have emphasis. Now, emphasis deals with the parts of a design that are meant to stand out. In most cases, this means the most important information is the design is meant to convey. Emphasis can also be used to reduce the impact of certain informations. This is most apparent in cases where fine print is used for ancillary information in a design. Tiny typography like these small white parts, tucked away at the bottom of the page, carries much less weight than almost anything else in a design and is therefore de-emphasized. As you see in the poster, these little parts are not meant to be emphasized, so their sizes are small, their fonts aren't too big, and the build something is the main focus of this poster or website page in this case. So it's in block letters. Your eyes are supposed to go to this. Like, how can you miss something which is so big and is standing out? It has the most emphasis, so it is standing out. For the next part, we have the old idea of ratio and proportion. Is the size of the elements in relation with one another? Well, it signals what's important in a design and what is not. Larger elements are more important, smaller elements are less. It goes with the principle of emphasis, which is to make something more important to you by just playing with the size, text, color, or basically just a layout. As you can see in this picture, this one is supposed to stand out. The infographics on this part is not quite visible because the creator of this Traffic didn't want them to stand out. This part is more emphasized and has a greater proportion than this one. Now for the hierarchy, it directly relates how well content can be processed by people using a website. It refers to the importance of elements within a design. The most important element should appear to be the most important. See, in this part, this is a website, and as you can see, this image of a woman has a higher ratio than the other parts like below of it because the owner or the creator wants it to stand out more, and it has a higher hierarchy than this one or this one. For the side part, this is just a sidebar, and if you open the sidebar, the hierarchy of this Christmas tree is more than that of the profile which is listed there. So it has the more space and more content than this part. Again, if you come to the lower parts of the screenshot, you can see that this image has a greater ratio than this one, suggesting that this has a higher hierarchy than this one. So, I'm sorry, everything is actually connected, and if you miss one part, it's going to mess up with the other. So, it's mindful to keep everything in the brain so that you can design things efficiently. Sorry, excuse me. Hierarchy is most easily illustrated through the use of titles and headings in a design. The title of the page should be the most important and therefore should be immediately recognizable as most important elements on a page. Headings and subheadings can be formatted in a way which shows their importance in relation with each other as in relation with the title and the body copy. This has a bigger size font and on an overall a greater area than this part. So this has a higher hierarchy than this one. They want you to subscribe and not to just go to this part. As for the repetition, it's a great way to reinforce an idea. It's also a great way to unify a design that brings together a lot of different elements. Repetition can be done in a number of ways, like by repeating the same colors, typefaces, shapes, or other elements in a design. This article, for example, uses repetition in the format of the headings. Each design principle is formatted the same as the other in this section, signaling to readers that they are all of equal importance and that they're all related. Consistent headings unify these elements across the page. Now for the rhythm. The spaces between repeating elements can cause a sense of rhythm to form, similar to the way that space between notes of a musical composition creates a rhythm. There are five basic types of visual rhythm that designers can create, that is random, regular, alternating, flowing, and progressive. Random rhythms have no discernible pattern. Regular rhythms follow the same spacing between each element with no variation. That's why it's named regular. Alternating rhythms follow a set pattern that repeats, but there is a variation between the actual elements like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. For the spaces, as an example. Flowing rhythms follows bends and curves similar to the way sand dunes undulate or waves flow. Progressive rhythms change as they go along, with each change adding to the previous iterations. The rhythm actually plays a major role in deciding how catchy your design can be. If there is no rhythm, then it might seem off and you might have to reconstruct it in a way that it seems appealing. As you can see, this is an abstract rhythm. The space between the elements is more or less the same, even though the shapes are abstract. So it provides an idea of uniformity. Still, it's actually interesting. It can be used to create a number of feelings. They can create excite, particularly flowing and progressive rhythms, because it might remind you of music, or create reassurance and consistency. It all depends on the way that they are implemented. And the next part is pattern. Patterns are nothing more than a repetition of multiple design elements working together. Wallpaper patterns are one of the most ubiquitous example of patterns that virtually everyone is familiar with. In design, however, patterns can also refer to the standards for how certain elements are designed. For example, the top navigation is a design pattern that majority of the internet users have interacted with. There is a set pattern for dealing with a nav bar, and it's more or less uniform with almost all of the websites that deal with every day. It doesn't change, but there is a set amount of space between the elements and the other elements, which makes it distinctive and similar to other ones, but not exact. The use of white space is also referred to as negative space that do not include any design elements. It's just empty. Well, many beginning designers feel the need to pack every pixel with some type of design and overlook the value of white space, and it actually happens with more beginners than you can ever think of, because they think that the design is not well enough, there's not much element, there's something that needs to be done, but no, it ain't. White space serves many important purposes in a design, foremost being giving elements of a design room to breathe. Negative space can also help highlight specific content or specific parts of a design. As you can see here, there are white spaces here, 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 and here. It's evenly spaced. It gives a much cleaner look and is visually appealing. You'd like to see this as opposed to something which has elements clumped and cluttered in every corner and in every space possible. It just makes it seem like a mess, and people would click away from your design if they see that. It gives a lot of room for people to think that, okay, this one is this is the next part, this is the next to next part, and so on. It gives the mind some kind of clarity while browsing through your design. It also has a much cleaner aspect to dealing with something as opposed to something which has a lot of things minus the negative space. Well, it can also make elements of a design easier to discern. Typography is more legible when uppercase and lowercase letters are used, since negative space is more varied around lowercase letters, which allows people to interpret them more quickly. In some cases, negative space is used to create secondary images that may not be immediately apparent to the viewer. This can be a valuable part of the branding that can delight customers. Well, can you find the hidden arrow in this FedEx logo? If yes, put your hand up. Okay, three people. Four, five, six, seven,
Excuse me.
eight. Yeah, tell.
What application should I use for this graphic design?
Are you a beginner or you have experience
No,
in some other apps?
actually joined late.
Oh, okay. So in this bootcamp, you'll be using Figma, but you can also use Canva or Adobe if you want.
That is only for drawing. By making the drawing, we have to make the graphics.
Not necessarily. You can use pre-existing vectors or designs.
Is digipod required for this?
No. Any other questions? And in case you didn't notice, there is an arrow sign tucked right away in here, which is a very clever marketing. I mean, it's very fishy and very subtle. You wouldn't expect an arrow here, right? But there it is. Well, next we go to the movement part. Movement refers to the way that the eye travels over a design. The most important element should lead to the next most important one, and so on. This is usually done through positioning, because the eye naturally falls on certain areas of a design first. Emphasis and other design elements, as already mentioned, are also used here to make movement easier. As you can see, if your eyes just fall on this 0 1 part, it's just going to 0 to next and not on 0 3. You see this, then this, and finally, my name is Abby. Or you can start with my name is Abby, then 01 02 03. That is how a flow is created in the design, and it is helpful for some particular projects, like in case you want to advertise something, or you're providing steps on how to use something, or reading some code or whatsoever. For the next part, we have variety. Well, it is used to create visual interest. Without variety, a design can quickly become very monotonous, causing the user to lose interest. Variety can be created in a variety of ways. Notice the two varieties here. Anyway, through color, typography, images, shapes, and virtually any other design element. However, variety for the sake of variety is pointless. Variety should reinforce the other elements of a design and can be alongside them to create a more interesting and aesthetically pleasing outcome that improves the user's experience. If you have a poster, for example, and if you want to introduce variety just for the sake of variety, it's monotonous to you but may not be the same for any other user, and vice versa. It's kind of pointless at that point, and that's why you might have to get reviews for your design and work on it to make your design better. As you see in this picture, there is a variety in the number of colors, shapes, and the typography used to create a very aesthetically pleasing poster. This one and this one has been strategically placed to make it seem more like a coral reef, and this font is different from this font, which is different from this font. So you have to play around with everything to create something which gives you the message of what you're actually trying to do and not something else. For the next part, we have Unity, and by Unity, we do not mean the game engine Unity. It refers to how well the elements of a design work together. Visual elements should have clear relationships with each other in a design. It also helps ensure concepts are being communicated in a clear, cohesive fashion. Designs with more good unity also appear to be more organized and of higher quality than designs of poor unity. As you can see in this picture, they're introducing something. So this part, it has a bold color and bold font which tells about the objectives. Then this part tells about a particular type of value they're offering, and all these parts are connected together. Even though they have maintained the same color palette, that is blue and white, in majority of the designs. It looks good, feels fresh and clean, and more people can actually see this than a cluttered one where the designs seem out of place.
Tithi, we have a question in the chat
Hmm.
regarding variety.
How will we know that variety is required in a particular design? Well, that's by trial and error. You might think that in a very basic poster you have done really good job and you want to proceed with that, but that might not be the same amount of pleasure for someone who views it, who does not know how much effort you have put in. It might seem very bland and has no depth in it and whatsoever. And so you have to work on a principle that is called design, then get reviews and then work on it. In this process you will get some reviews about your project, like I don't like this type of font, please change it because I don't find anything good in it. You do that and somehow variety is established in it. It also depends. Any other questions, anyone? Okay. Well, the other principles of design include typography, which refers to the way text is arranged in a design. That includes to the fonts used, their spacing, size and weight, and the way different text elements relate to each other. Good typographic design is heavily influenced by all of the other design elements mentioned earlier. The use of color in design is also one of the most psychologically important parts of design and has a huge influence on user experience. Color psychology and theory heavily influences some of the other principles mentioned earlier. If you are into psychology, then you might know that warm colors can affect a certain part of your mood as opposed to dark colors. And if you're feeling very calm, you can use blue, you can use red for energetic things and stuff. So the color in design is also something which has a big role to play in your design. Shape is also a major part in any design, both in terms of specific shapes, as in elements within the design like a rectangle or a square or a tetrahedron or an ellipse, and the overall shape of the design itself, which may vary from being a landscape or portrait design. Different shapes can evoke different feelings, like circles are organic and fluid, squares are more rigid and formal, triangles give a sense of energy or movement, or maybe the Illuminati. Now we come to the grid and alignment, which are closely related to balance and can refer to the way elements are arranged in relation to an invisible grid on the page. While you can assume it to be invisible, but certain softwares at times can provide an on screen grid which you can turn on and off to know actually how you're placing the elements. I know Figma has one and it is used while designing a website, and you can use it to effectively time and place your elements so that they don't look cluttered or uninteresting. Framing refers to how the primary subject of a design is placed in relation with the other elements of the page. It's often the heard referred to in cinematography or photography. Like this is the frame, this is that frame, the frames are not in order, something like that, with how the main focus of an image is placed within an overall image. But this principle carries over into design. Design is itself a very flowy subject and covers a lot of different avenues. So don't be surprised if you run into design elements, even in places where you don't expect them. These design principles or elements are important aspects of good design and should be considered along with other basic principles to create the best user experiences. Um, Now, what constitutes the basic principles of design is certainly up for debate because you might consider it to be very basic and someone might think that it's not up to the par, but understanding and implementing the principles covered above is vital to the success of any design project. It's entirely possible to create a good design without a thorough understanding of these elements and principles of design. However, it is typically done by the designer's intuition and may take a lot of trial and error in order to create something that actually looks good and creates an optimal user experiences. Like I told, you make a design, you get feedback on your design, you work on it, improve it a little bit, again get reviews on your project, again work on it, and that is how you do things by trial and error and ultimately end up with a masterclass experience. Designers can also save a lot of time and energy by practicing the principles we have discussed until they become second nature. Designers should aim to understand how much of these design principles actually impact their work. Studying how other designers have implemented these ideas to structure their own designs is also an incredibly valuable tool in learning to create better designs. And now for this, I have a little story which I would like to share. Like when I started designing for events and stuff, I had no idea of any design principles or how designing actually works. So I was an absolute noob in that case, and I was handed with the responsibilities to create a stellar design for a very big tech conference. So I just went with my intuition, used a lot of blank space because I had no idea what to put where, but I just tried to keep everything symmetrical and it worked for that part. And when I went to other places for designing purposes, I found out that what I had used in the past is not visually appealing to the people with whom I'm working now. So I had to go back on that part, work on the principles, learn a few techniques on how to improve, then again garner feedback on it, again work on it, and it's a very tedious process. At times you might get frustrated, which is a spoiler alert. Designing is not necessarily easy, it's more like the creative vision you have and how much time and energy you are going to invest in making your design a truly phenomenal one. Like everything I said, I learned a lot of new things in the way, and these days I'm trying to incorporate some new technologies. And to be very honest, AI has almost reduced the work of the designers. People don't actually call designers to make their own infographics and stuff. They are just like, if you can work, it's well and good, or else we are just going to use Mid Journey to generate an image and we will put up that as a poster. Well, it has hit us hard because what we can build in within like 3 days, like Midjourney can generate it within three prompts, and honestly, it's kind of disappointing to us. But yeah, it's a new learning experience when you see other designers design because sometimes your vision is completely different from what others think, and that can be a major blow to you as well because you might think like मैंने तो ये सोचा था ये कहाँ से आ गया रे बाबा. That happens a lot more than you actually think, and you have to continuously learn from others. Even though they have a bad design, there's still a lot to learn from them because you need to get points on what not to do from them, and if you anyone has a good design, then you might need to jot down points on what to copy from them to get a good design. It actually works, and it's a very extensive process, and sometimes it's fun and sometimes it's very frustrating. So on the last part, any questions, anyone? And thanks for listening on a weekend. Any questions?
If anyone has any questions, please just drop them in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature and ask your question.
The fun fact is that I don't actually use any kind of software other than Figma. So using
Oh,
Illustrator was very difficult for me because I got overwhelmed seeing the different kind of tools, and honestly the 7-day trial period just wasn't up to my liking. And if you want to get your hands on, we have a session tomorrow as well. Drop in if you want, and have a nice day. How to follow a theme for all the components in a website for better UI or UX. See, that's up to you because it's up to the base colors that you are using and the base fonts that makes the base of your design. After you have decided your base components, you can just tweak some colors. You can just play with the shades, tints, and hues to get something which is not completely off from the base theme, and work on it to get the secondary parts, and then you just have a theme naturally.
I believe that there are no further questions. In case anyone has any questions for Tithi, please just drop them in the chat. Okay, yeah. Shalanya, please go ahead.
Why did you say that you did not like Illustrator? Was it that the fact that there were so many tools
Yeah,
that scared you
absolutely.
or something? Why did so many tools scare you? Like for me, I'm a
Yeah,
graphic designer too. I think working in Illustrator is so much easy and you can customize everything. You can have the artboard aligned. Why only the tools was the problem? That's what I'm trying to ask.
the tools was, as a first time user, the tools were just too much for me. And also, like, for the original software, they have a limited time free trial. For cracked softwares, they can actually harm your device, and I do not have a stable one, so that was one of the issues.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Uh, I guess there are no further questions now. Thank you so much, Tithi, for that, really informative session. With that, I believe we can move on to the next part of today's event, that is on UI UX design. For that, we have a UI designer from Intelli Tech, Aditi Hambarde. Uh, without further ado, I will request Aditi to kindly take it over from here. Over to you, Aditi.
Hello, everyone. Wish you a very good evening. My name is Aditi Hambarde, and I'm thrilled to be here. So, currently, I'm in my final year of computer engineering, and side by side, I'm working in education startup, education technology startup, which is named as Tech. What sets me apart is my passion for both technology and design. So, without wasting any further time, I'll share my screen and help you through the basics of UI and UX design. Okay, so first, as Tithi has explained a lot about various aspects which are used in UI and UX design as well, which are like white space and contrast and everything like that. So yeah, this is something we'll be talking about today, which is user interface design, user experience design, design principles, design thinking, and hands-on practice. So without wasting a lot of time, I'll just um, introduce you with the basics of UI, UX principles and thinkings. Okay. And we'll focus more on hands on practice. So, user interface design. This is basically any interface which you use every day. For example, starting from WhatsApp to Amazon, everything which you use has some kind of interface through which you interact with the technology. So, basically, UI is a design which we use, UI as an interface, user interface, for which various tools like Figma are used. This basically focuses on how user interact and which includes various principles to create aesthetically pleasing and functional interfaces. Then comes user experience design. Once you have designed the UI, then the next step is how is a user able to use it properly and what feedback do they give. User experience is something. User experience is something like anyone and everyone from any age group should be able to use the interface designed by you without facing much difficulty. For example, there are some basics like there's a back arrow here, I mean, everywhere on the screen, which I'm using as a pointer. So we can see that when I take this arrow to the left hand side of the screen, you can see a back image, a back arrow. So a back arrow should work to its purpose. Like when I do this, it's going a slide back. And when I do this, it is facing to the right hand side. So it should work in the same way. This arrow shouldn't mean anything else in your user interface design such that it confuses the user. So this is the very first and basic property of user designing a user interface in such a way that user doesn't face any difficulty and improving your overall user experience. We have been known that Apple products have a very good user interface, starting from like the rounded corners everywhere, which creates a visually appealing impact as compared to the Android phones. Okay. So UX design, it is about UX design principles and UI design principles are basically the same thing. It is about, as I just explained, overall experience with the product, such that its usability, accessibility, and various prospects like visibility and everything is judged. So we should be using these design principles and we should keep this in mind while designing anything from scratch. So before I move on to the next slide, can you guys just guess some of the design principles? You can raise your hands or just unmute yourself and tell me any one by one. Anyone? Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. The basics of or the principles of designer as follows: emphasis, balance, contrast, repetition, proportion, movement, and white space.
Okay. So are these the ones you have noted down from the first part of our webinar workshop? Yeah, got it.
Yes, I mean not like fully from there, but I know them. I've studied them back in a year, so that's what I remember in my mind.
Yeah, great. You're going good. Also, I can find one question in the chat box from Raj Roy. It is something you want to know about roadmap of UI UX. So before we move forward, I would like to get back to this question. So as I can see, every one of you is from computer science and BTech background. So what takes you to become a designer than of that of a developer? May I know this? Many of you have replied that you are from a computer science background. You can write it down in chat box as well. All right, we can move on to the next part. So here are some basic design principles, which is usability, consistency, hierarchy, contrast, simplicity, feedback, accessibility, emotional design, and there are so many more. So do I need to explain every one of this? I don't think so. There's a need of that. So yeah, usability is basically how usable your interface is. I'll just explain it in one line. Consistency is how consistent your developed user interface is. Hierarchy means the flow of your screens you have designed should go like from login, should go like from a welcome page to login page and then to the main application. Then just it should follow some flow. Contrast is basically the color combination which you use, which can often be referred as color palette. Simplicity is basically choosing the elements you are using, like font, frames, graphics, or illustrations, we can say. It should be simple and it should be good to eyes. Like user should be able to read it without any difficulty. And you can use various fonts, basic fonts like any Google Sans, or Apple has created various design guidelines. You can use fonts from that. Feedback is basically a part of UX. So it is how, okay, yeah. Feedback is something from UX. It is mostly about how user feels. You can get a feedback, you can prepare a feedback form and get your feedback from there. Accessibility and emotional design. Accessibility means ensuring that interface is usable by people with different abilities, considering text size, color contrast, and keyboard navigation. Emotional design is basically emotional impact of your design. You should know for what kind of company or institute you are designing your interface. So it should go with the theme. Okay. Then next is Don Norman. Don Norman is referred as father of UX design, and there's a very good book written by him which you all should refer, which is The Design of Everyday Things. So Don Norman has given us various design principles like consistency, visibility, constraint, feedback, mapping, and affordance. I'll explain each one of them in detail because these are some of the most important design principles. So first is visibility. Visibility by is like what I just explained. This arrow. What does this arrow mean? So it should serve for the purpose it is designed for. By just looking at the interface, user should know how to access them. Then comes feedback, which is popularly associated with the UIs. Feedback, like user must receive a feedback after every action they perform to let them know whether their action was successful or not. For example, if you have downloaded some PDF file or Word doc file, um, from like if when you download anything, you get a notification saying that file has been successfully downloaded or saved here and here. So that is something which guarantees that your action is successful, and so that you can move forward to the next step. Affordance is something, a link between how things look and how and for what purpose they are actually used for. For example, a coffee mug. A coffee mug has high affordance because just after looking at it, you have to hold it and drink from that. So, in a similar way, interfaces should be designed in such a way that after you look at them, you should know what is their purpose for. Then comes mapping. Mapping is something like a scroll bar, you can say. This scroll bar is present at top, bottom of this screen, where you can see there are various navigation buttons. It is uh, it is giving you details of on which slide you are. Go to next page, go to right page, something like that. So this is mapping to help user map like where they are and what is the next step to be done, or what will happen if they click some button of like that. Mapping, a very basic example of mapping is Google Maps. It helps you to know where you are and where you have to get. A small little red color pin is used for the destination you have to reach or something like that. So which is like known by everyone. So that one small little pin lets you know on a like on your entire mobile screen, that one small little red pin will help you know where is your destination to and how to head there, something like that. And constraints is something, for example, if you're filling an online form, it hides your password. It doesn't allow you to enter alphabets in phone numbers box. So that is something, design constraints you have to use there. And then is consistency. So all of the things you design should look similar. For example, if you're using a color palette, let's say dark mode on the first page, you can't just switch to new colors, new kind of boxes, buttons on the next page. So consistency is something you need to keep in your mind. Then let us move forward to design thinking. Design thinking is basically a problem solving approach designed in such a way that it focuses on user centric approach and encourages designers to iterate, refine their solutions based on user feedback. So once you receive a feedback from user, you need to think the way user is thinking. What might seem good to you might not seem good to your user. So you should keep in mind like how to design an interface in such a way that what your client needs. So you need to note down. It is basically an iterative process. So you need to go step by step. It is not a linear process. So it encourages designers to revisit and refine their solutions. Okay. So moving forward, these are some steps. Not like steps, but things which you have to keep in mind while focusing on design thinking. You can just read this out, which is like very basic things of design thinking. First is that you should think the way your user is thinking. Then define your um, define your users' pain points and challenges, and ideate some of the solutions which you have. Prototype is the most important part of design thinking. Starting from a low fidelity wireframe or more to a published prototype is something you need to focus more on. And testing how your prototype works would be the last stage of design thinking. Design thinking promotes a collaborative, user centric approach, encouraging designers to iterate and refine their solutions. Okay, so I think we should start with hands on practice now. Do you all have Figma app installed in your computers?
In case they don't have Figma, I believe that they can use the
Yeah,
on
you can
web
use a web
version of
version.
Figma.
Yeah.
That is www.figma.com.
Yeah, just open your Figma and you can create a new design file. I'll share my screen. Just a minute. If anyone of you is having any doubt to create a new design file, you can just switch on your mic and ask. Guys, you need to reply, or else how will I know if you're like getting any difficulties? Or just raise your hand if you're done with.
Folks, if you open Figma on your systems, then just uh, react with a thumbs up or drop a one in the chat, please. Okay, I believe a lot of them have successfully opened up a new file in Figma.
Okay, great. So you must be having such a kind of screen on your Figma. So we will be designing a basic food application today, just 2 or 3 screens, so that you do get a basic idea of how to design. So first, as you can see, a grid-like structure here. You have to click on frame. Once you click on frame, you get a lot of frames from iPhone. We will be using iPhone 14 and 15 Pro Max frame. So once you click on that, you get this screen-like image here. Okay, everyone is here. Do it along with me side by side. So just in case you have any doubts, you can ask it right here. Okay. Okay, so here is a nav bar I have already installed. So if you don't have it right now, you can go to assets and import one, but that's not necessary for time being. Even I won't use it. So first is, let us name our food app something. You go on text box, click your text, draw a text box here. You can use basic font, like I will be using Poppins font, and you can use the same. As this will be our heading, or we can say the first page, we can keep font up to 40 as, yeah. Okay. Food delivery app. This is the basic thing which you have to write. Okay. As you can see, I can move it here and there, but you have to align it centrally. Okay. Central alignment. So for example, as you all are new here, you can search, you can go to Figma community and search for things like iOS Figma kit. You will find such kind of nav bars and stuff there. So if I status bar, you can call this. Sorry, not nav bar, status bar. Okay, so if I go to community, I have to add, this screen looks like pretty blank. So I have to add some illustration, 3D illustration. So you have to go here, search 3D illustrations. Okay, you will find many of that. So let's go with the first one. It will be easy for you to find as well. Sally 3D illustration pack. Click on that. Say open in Figma. It will take some time to load.
Folks, if you have any doubts or if facing any issues, please just raise your hand or drop them in the chat box. We would be happy to help you out.
Yeah, let us just do it side by side so that you don't lag behind. Okay. Okay. So you find 3 kind of pages here. Go to library. You will find various kind of sample 3D illustrations printed here. So you can use any one of them. Let us Let us use this globe saying our food application delivers it everywhere. Okay, so use this globe, duplicate this by pressing Ctrl D, then cut it from here by pressing Ctrl X and paste it on your screen. Oh, yeah. Okay, so while resizing, make sure you enable this option. This is constraint proportions, very important while designing any kind of UI. Once you have finalized an element, you should, like for example, you have drawn a circle and you want that circle to stay circle always, even after you resize it. When I resize this, it is forming oval and whatnot. So, so first we give it dimensions, height and width, equal height and width, so it forms back to a circle. And when I switch on this constraint proportions option, on resizing this, okay, on resizing this, as I have not like I have not selected a frame here, so it will change again. Wait, just a minute. You have to add a frame. Okay, we can continue that later on. Just make sure you switch on this constraint proportions option so that when you resize it, it won't change its dimensions. So yeah, once done, you can paste it here. Okay, so making sure we use the same proportions, make height and width 250 and 250. Okay, so yeah, see, as I had switched this on, when I make this 500, this changes automatically. Okay, so yeah, we make it 300, width is 300, and we make height also 300, and we switch back constraint proportions option again. Okay, centrally align it like this. You will see this red line in the center. This is centrally aligned. So this seems very basic, right? We need to add some kind of designs, or you can choose some color palette. So let us just choose some color palette. You can just Google it if you don't have time to find it from Figma. Make sure you choose a color palette which has color codes mentioned in it. So I'll just paste one here. This is a simple pastel shade color palette we will be using. Okay. So to add something, to add a background from scratch, you design one oval shape, any kind of shape you can. Okay. Just choose any one of the color. Let us say I'm using this. You can change color from here, type that code, and color will automatically appear. Okay, this is the color. So just keep it aside for a while. Select these two things and group them by pressing Ctrl G. You'll find us as a group here. Okay. Yeah. So for designing background, we can use gradient. Gradient is something popularly used. You can add gradient from here. Click here. You have a gradient option here. So first is the color which we have chosen, the pink shade, and another, to choose another color, you can just choose any darker version of that. And this is the transparency level of what color you will be using. So just adjust it from here. So yeah, you can also change this second color, that is take the purple shade. Okay, so we have this. we don't want this to be circle and it won't look good. So click 3 times on the circle and you will receive such lines. You see these 4 dots? You can reshape the circle in this kind of things. Okay, now I have my circle reshaped. Align it. Okay, as the gradient is not applicable here because we had it in a horizontal way, we can still change the gradient. As you can see, wait a minute. Okay, so adjust its transparency to 80 or something. Add some more shapes like this and change their way they are shaped. You can change the color as well. Okay, so this is the second thing. You can add as many shapes to make it look good, or else we can just give this background a basic color, which is okay. So yeah, this is it. We can also add gradient here. This is the way you can change the way, change the alignment of the gradient. So we have to change this color, adjust its transparency so that it changes throughout the way you have aligned it. If I do this, I can also do this. I'll change the color so that you get to know how it is performing. You can also change the, like, you can adjust it like this. So okay, we keep it basic for the first time. You can adjust the transparency again. You can make this text bold or something to make it look more good. There is a auto align option which you might find difficult at the start, so I am teaching everything from the scratch. Auto align option is basically allows you to align everything on its own. Like Figma does all the job. All you have to do is write the things and just place it anywhere you want, and just group all the elements placed and auto align. So yeah, you can choose something like this, extra bold, and a color for it. You can pick up the color from this thing itself. We can choose green or blue, whatever you like. Blue. Okay, so we have a food delivery app. Now we have to create the most important thing, which is button. We place a square here, adjust it. Always make sure that the corners are rounded. Make it something around 15, 20. Okay. Then give this button a color, a darker version of the shade which you have used while naming here. So any color you can use, whichever you like. So after this is done, you have to add a text. You can just duplicate this file, place it here, change the color to Let's say pick up a color from image you have taken, this gray. Right here, order now. Okay, place it here. This doesn't have to be bold or extra bold always. You can keep it medium, semi bold, and regular. You can also adjust the font to 25 or 30. 30 is good. Now you have to group these two elements, which is the text and the button. You group it by pressing Ctrl G. Then you have first screen of your food app. It might not look very good at the moment, but like this is the first screen. So yeah. Now and duplicate the screen and just remove all the unnecessary things, making it just a basic screen of your app. You can readjust these things to make it look different. You can also add some more elements, but keeping time in mind that it's already 9. So yeah. Another thing is you have to create a blank box, like a sign up form, we can say, a login page. Make it something like this. Again, round the corners around 20. Make sure this sign up pages and stuff is in natural colors, like use completely white or RGB. You know the color palette, right? Basic color palette. It should go in that way. Duplicate this, add it something here. Say login. Login. Center align everything. Then add a box here again. Okay, you have this box, something like this. Round the corners again. Go to stroke. Stroke is something to create a type box wherein you type something. So yeah, create a stroke. This should be a lighter version of gray, maybe. Yeah, and stroke in the colors which you have used. This is like a bit too rounded. You have to get it to 15 or 10. 10 is good. Okay, so you place it here. You get another one here. You add your font 25, regular, and some darker color which is already used. Say username. Username. Okay. Align it to left align so that it doesn't change like I did. Username and password. Okay. Password. Also, you need to guide your user how it is to be used. So make sure you also add something like this here, saying enter your user name. Enter your username. And similarly, you can write here enter your password. Okay. So duplicate this order now button, adjust it accordingly. Like we had grouped the things. So everything will go hand in hand. Adjust this. Rename order now to login. Maybe your submit. Submit, okay. Adjust it like this. Doing this. Okay. Now ungroup the things so that, or else you can double click on it and it will just, yeah, click submit, group it again, place it somewhere here, centrally, align again. Stay here. And resize this in such a way that it should look good. You can add another illustration saying this. Duplicate this, cut it from here, paste on the screen. Where is it? Okay. It's here. resize it. It isn't, yeah. Resize it to somewhere around 250. You get 250 into 250 illustration. Add it here in this way. Add it here. You can make it more, a bit more smaller, 150. So it fits here. Login. So this is our second page. So this is how you design some screen from scratch. You have to group all these things we have designed and place it in the middle of the screen like this. Yeah. So this is our second page. So any doubts still here? Till now I have designed only 2 pages because it takes time without using auto layout options. So that's all for today. In next classes we will learn, like I'll make some more screens for you and we will learn about prototyping and stuff, similar stuff. Okay, any doubts?
Guys, if you have any doubts, just put in the chat or you can unmute. And thank you, Aditi, for the great session. It's a great UI you made. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, guys.
And keep in mind while designing UI, color palette and font you use is the most important thing you can do. So choose it wisely. Okay. Yeah, someone has raised their hand. You can just unmute and ask.
Yeah, Aditi, I would like to ask that how did you get that notification bar in the UX design part?
Uh,
Hello. Hello. Sorry, I lost my network. Can you please ask again?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah. You're audible.
Yeah, I would like to ask that how did you added that notification part in that iPhone 14 part?
Notification part.
Yeah, that
The
notification bar.
Okay, you can download it from assets or you can use it. It is like I showed, you have to explore Figma community. You can just type iPhone UI kit there and you'll find a lot of options there. You can just copy paste it on your screen. Anything else?
folks, I have posted a feedback link in the chat. So please give a feedback and just say how much you enjoyed this session there. So, and also join our Telegram channel, and we'll be making a channel exclusively for this bootcamp so that you can stay in touch with and the speakers. They will be having more sessions tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. So yeah, join our Telegram channel, and yes.
Also, I'll paste my LinkedIn profile link here. If you have any
Yes.
doubts in future, even after the bootcamp, you can get in touch with me. This is my LinkedIn.
Okay. So also the session has been recorded and we will be posting it on our YouTube. So watch out for that. And also means if you do make any post, make sure you tag us. So and if anybody has any questions for the speakers, you can just talk with us now. For I guess, do we have time? No, sorry. We don't have that much time today. But I hope everybody enjoyed the session, and thanks a lot to the speakers. Means yes. Thank you everybody for joining, and that was it. Make sure you join tomorrow's session, and yeah, you can start living now if you don't have any doubts. Thanks everyone.